So like I said, Keener has provided evidence for that there have been miracles, so read his book. But I'm basically saying that as a historian, you've got to come at the historical material in an objective way. You don't have to believe in God, you don't have to believe in miracles, but you can be open-minded, and that means just being open to the historical data rather than ruling it out. And once you get multiple attestation for something, then that's when you need to take it seriously. But your whole critique, your whole flow of the whole argument against the existence of the resurrection taking place was based on what I would call scientism. You're framing the debate in terms of empirical scientific data. Unless it is scientific data, that's basically your main argument. Unless it is scientific data, then it's not going to be valid. What I frame my debate in is its historical data, and historical data is not quite the same as scientific data. Alright? Epistemologically, they're not on the same front. We can provide scientific data about Jesus dying. We can look at some issues concerning his blood flow. We can provide some kind of scientific data, but ultimately it's resting on historical data. Okay? Your whole argument is, unless it is framed as scientific information, it's not valid information. And that's not true. Susan Hake has noticed that a lot of people try to use science to prop up their arguments. The argument goes, my argument is based on science, so it is better than your argument. But that's fallacious, because just because you try to frame everything in a scientific perspective does not mean that all knowledge is based on science. Historical knowledge is based on principally looking at documents. It's looking at documentary material. It's looking at archaeological artifacts. A lot of that requires a historian's methodology, and a lot of that methodology is not principally with science, it's principally the way a historian works. Like I said, we use scientific data and information, but our principal methodology is looking at documents and try to define and understand them in relation to archaeological artifacts. And we have historical criteria for dealing with that data. And that's not based on science, but the way a historian does his or her work. So in other words, you're framing the whole debate in terms of empirical science, which is fallacious and is what I would call scientism. And an atheist, Susan Hake, or Hack, has given a great lecture on this, and you would be well advised to listen to that lecture. You said I needed to provide good arguments, and I feel that I provided some good arguments. My arguments are based on reliable historical information. If you're going to debunk the resurrection, the best way that you can do it is to say, I grant you the facts, but you still don't get the resurrection. Well, if you grant me the facts, then we can go on to other issues about cause and effect. But if you grant me the facts, make sure you're intellectually honest, because a number of atheists debating me have said, okay, we grant you the facts. Well, it's interesting to note that the vast majority of atheists are into Mithraism and saying that Jesus is a myth, and using the Mithrist religion as a way of saying, or ancient mythological religions, and saying that Christianity came out of them. That's the vast majority of atheists are doing that. Richard Carrier, for example, people like that. And the vast majority of atheists on YouTube and the internet. One or two atheists have realized that they're not going to win the argument, and they're changing. One of them, I debated D.P.R. Jones. Now, it's interesting that D.P.R. Jones and some of these atheists who are saying, okay, we grant you the facts, still doesn't get you the resurrection. Alright? What they're not doing when they say that They're being intellectually dishonest. Because they have to give a hypothesis themselves and then some evidence. And if you are not willing, deconverted man, to, and I stress this, this is my final point to you, if you are not willing to give us a hypothesis and then put some data with evidence on the table, then you are not in the debate. And the atheists who are smart, smarter than these people who are advocating Jesus is a myth, there's a couple like Ozzy and DPR Jones who are much smarter than the average atheist who's propounding this Jesus is a myth. If you are one of these smart atheists who say, okay, we can't win that argument, if we say Jesus is a myth, we're going to get wasted. If you start to say, well, we grant you the facts, you've got another big issue. You need to put down what is your hypothesis and what specifically are the facts, and on what basis are you basing those facts. When you do that, you would then enter the debate. No atheist yet on YouTube is willing to do that. DPR Jones has not done it, Ozzy has not done it, and other atheists have not done it. You need to put down a hypothesis. Then you need to give us your evidence. Then we compare our hypotheses and our evidence against your hypotheses and your evidence. If you try to take the ground from under us and say we agree with your facts, you still need to provide your hypotheses and why you are basing on what you are basing your facts on. Okay? And then we move into a new debate, a new aspect of the debate about evidence for cause and effect in the early church. But that's a different argument. That's only for those people who get away from this Mithraism. Okay, I can't cover everything. In Deconverted, you seem to be hinting towards Jesus is a myth. So I've dealt with you on that ground. If I get an atheist who says, well, I believe that all the facts that you're saying still doesn't get you resurrection, then we can go on to other details about other historical facts that we know that will challenge your position when you're trying to take the position from us. Okay? But that's another debate for another atheist. But I'll just put that in just in case. For example, women were central to the early church's testimony. Our facts are based on also that the women were central to the New Testament proclaiming of the church. Now, I debated with DPR Jones and I conceded a little bit, but I've come back to change my position and come back again. No, the women were central. Because even though 1 Corinthians 15 talks about the men and about how Peter and James were central to the eyewitness accounts, the Gospels were based on eyewitness material. And so it goes back to an early tradition of eyewitness material, and it is a fact then that the early church based their witness on the basis of the women. Now the women were seen as only half the witness of a man. So to make your new religion based on women was a revolutionary thing to do. Only a resurrection will explain that. No sociological studies are going to change or give an answer to why that is the case, unless you can provide that evidence. And if you say, well, the women would have been put in the gospel accounts because they would have been the first to go anyway to spice the body, well, one, that shows the historical veracity of the gospels in that it shows you it's in historical time, and secondly, they still would have left out that they'd seen Jesus, because it would have been based on their testimony. But they put it in, basing the foundation of Christianity on women. Why is that the case? As atheists, you need to give a better explanation of why that is the case. Alright, that's for the atheist who might think they're a bit clever and try to take the feet from under us by saying we accept your facts. Okay. Alright, thank you for listening, and Deconverted Man, I've done my videos. We said 6 videos of 10 minutes each. I've done 3 videos, so you can take the time away from some of my videos from these. Okay, I'm sorry about that, but there was so much material in there. I'll leave it to you now. It's over to you. I'll be really interested to hear what you have to say. Thank you for listening, and God bless you.